So what I'm going to be talking about with encryption is that you get two different kinds of encryption. You get what we call symmetrical encryption, and then you get what we call asymmetrical. Okay. Symmetrical is also known as private encryption, and asymmetric is known as public encryption. Now, the reason we have these two different kinds is they're used for two different methods of transporting data. Private or symmetrical is used in LANs, meaning everybody in that network trusts each other. Okay? Whereas asymmetric is used in the public, so that's used on WANs, or of course in our case, the internet. And this is where we don't trust each other. So I'm going to be looking at symmetric first. So let me just clear my canvas here. So with symmetric encryption, I've got a person, of course, and I want to send a document to somebody else. I want to send a file. I need to encrypt that file. So what do I use to encrypt the file? I use my key. We call it a private key. And the reason we call it a private key, because it belongs to me. It's my key. Think of it as your house key. Only you have it. Okay. So I use this key to encrypt the document. Once the document is encrypted, I can then send it to the other person. But now this person has the encrypted data. So what they need to do is apply the same key to also decrypt the data. And this is where the problem comes. This key must be shared between everybody in that network, because I use the same key to both encrypt and decrypt the data. Now, in a network, in a LAN, this is not a problem, because in a LAN, we trust each other. It's like your family. I've got no problem in sharing my house key with my mum, or with my dad, or with my girlfriend, because we trust each other, hey? I have a problem sharing that key with somebody outside of my household, my neighbor, or the guy on the street. That we're definitely not going to do, hey? So symmetric encryption is only used in a LAN, where we trust each other. Now, what happens if we don't trust each other? What if we have a person over here that wants to send an email, but he wants to send that email to a person that does not belong in the same network? So we have a LAN over here, and this person sits in another LAN. He sits on the internet. What do we do now? I still want to encrypt this data, but I don't want to use my private key and send my private key to this person because I don't trust him. You know? Don't trust this person. So what do? That's when we have public encryption. And what public encryption do, every person now has two keys. He's got one private key and one public key. Okay, so this person over here also has two keys. One private key and one public key. The public key is used to encrypt the data. Okay? Whereas the private key is used to decrypt the data. So think of it as you got one key to lock your house and then a separate key to unlock your house. Two separate keys. So I now want to send data to this person. So what I do, I want to send email to, let's say, John. So before I can send the email, I go to John and I say, John, I want to send you an email, but I want to have it encrypted so that Sam cannot steal my email. Because we don't like Sam. Sam is bad. Okay. So what John will do is John say, cool, take my public key and use it to encrypt the data. So I will then take my email, use John's public key, encrypt the data, and then have my encrypted email. That encrypted email will then be sent to John. John will then take that encrypted email, use his or her private key to decrypt the data. Okay. The private key is private, so only John has access to that private key. Everybody has access to his public key. But because the public key is only used for encryption, even if Sam steals the public key, she still can't look at the data because the public key is not used for decrypting. It's only used for encrypting. Once John receives the email, he then uses his own private key, which only he knows, to decrypt the data. If John wants to send me an email back, he will take the email, he would come and get my public key, use that to encrypt the data, send it to me, and I would then use my own private key to actually decrypt the data. And that's how we can send encrypted information to people on the internet, people that we don't trust, but still have the protection of encrypting data so that nobody else can actually read it or steal it.